Meatpacking mess in Iowa. Hundreds and hundreds of workers sick with coronavirus during the beginning of the pandemic.
Monday was his last day. Thursday he got tested, and then Friday he got admitted to the emergency room.
Where meatpacking is king, counties see climbing positivity rates and deaths. Major companies like Tyson playing defense over accusations they put profits over the safety of employees.
They didn't care enough to give them accurate information about the severity of COVID.
Tonight on Local 5, a close inspection of the meatpacking industry during the pandemic and the unsung heroes making a difference. Coronavirus Cause and Effect, Iowa Impact, Episode 5. You're watching Local 5 News.
One of the most devastating casualties of the coronavirus pandemic, meatpacking workers losing their lives to the virus. More than 1,000 in Iowa getting sick, fearing if they missed work, they'd get fired. Local 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Rachel Droz is joining us now. Rachel, you followed these outbreaks closely from the start.
Yes, Stephanie, it was terrifying and terrible to watch. Local leaders blamed the plants for high community spread in their areas last spring, and families of those who worked at the plants were terrified their loved ones would get sick because of health safety protocols that weren't being closely followed. The mom you're about to hear from asked we hide her identity so her child didn't get in trouble at work.
There was clearly more that could and should have been done.
Grim statements from Black Hawk County Sheriff Tony Thompson in mid-April 2020.
Our entire countywide healthcare delivery and virus response system is paying the price for those lapses in protocol.
Around that same time, a mother who asked we not give her last name shared her concerns about her daughter who worked at the Tyson plant in Waterloo.
It just seems they were senseless in trying to take care of their employees.
Some of the essential workers at plants just like this one gave their lives to keep store shelves stocked and food on their own tables.
He was very fearful because they would say, you know, if you don't come, then you're going to lose your job. I just wish that I would have asked him to stop going to work earlier, and maybe that would have helped him.
An industry well known in Iowa, but not around the country before the pandemic, proving to be one of the most essential early on.
Workers may be essential, but they are never, ever, ever expendable.
Several plants in the state did end up halting production temporarily to deep clean and test employees, but many in those areas feel companies didn't do that soon enough. Stephanie?
All right, Rachel, thank you very much for that report. The number of cases continued to spread in the meatpacking plants, all while supervisors knew of the dangers and they did nothing to stop it. Those are the accusations filed by families of workers who died. Local 5's Sabrina Ahmed explains the lawsuit.
There are some scathing allegations coming out of this lawsuit filed against Tyson last year. Tyson has taken action since this wrongful death suit was filed in federal court, putting managers from the Waterloo plant on unpaid leave. But I spoke to Representative Ross Smith out of Waterloo, and he says this is a systemic issue and change must be legislated. 34 pages, claiming Tyson made a huge profit while its workers got sick and died. The family of Isidro Fernandez filed the suit, saying Fernandez got sick while working at the Waterloo plant and died in April. He is one of at least 5 employees who died of the virus. Around the time of Fernandez's death, the lawsuit claims a Waterloo plant manager organized a betting pool for supervisors and managers to wager how many employees would test positive. At least 1/3 of the workforce did. As the number of workers showing signs of illness rose, management at the Waterloo plant allegedly started showing up less, but offered thank you bonuses of $500 to employees who never missed a shift for 3 months.
It shows intent and it shows a lack of regard for people. The one was lying or asking interpreters to mislead employees. Right? These are employees who English is not their first language. The company cares about telling them when to show up to work, where to pick up their paychecks, what time they need to be there, but they didn't care enough to give them accurate information about the severity of COVID.
State Representative Ross Smith says the lawsuit reflects a culture and he wants to fix it.
For me, typical as it sounds, it was personal. I received a text message from a cousin who works at Tyson saying, I couldn't believe they didn't tell me.
The state deemed these facilities as essential because they were feeding America. According to court documents, Tyson increased its exports to China by 600% in the first quarter of 2020, exporting its largest single month total in more than 3 years in April.
The fact that they profited more this year than they've ever had before, right? Record profits during the pandemic, but also record number of employee deaths. Right? Our system is not working for the people.
But Representative Smith says it doesn't have to be this way, and he proposed legislation to change the system.
If they're essential, let's treat them like they're essential and important to us.
In a statement, the company's CEO said former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder will conduct an independent investigation of the Waterloo facility. I'm Sabrina Ahmed, Local 5 News. We are Iowa.
This year, U.S. House Democrats opened an investigation into OSHA and meatpacking plants over the COVID-19 outbreaks. They're looking into if federal leaders and the companies failed to protect workers at the plants during the pandemic. The scope of the outbreaks in packing plants was vast. In tonight's Data Dive, Local 5's Holly Schlesselman gives us context and numbers behind the worst hit areas.
Iowa's meatpacking industry was hit hard by COVID. Some became the epicenter of the state's largest outbreaks. Let me show you just how quickly cases escalated in the counties with Tyson facilities. The first county, Louisa, where they confirmed their first 2 cases on April 1st. A little over a week later, a total of 148 tests came back positive, and these tests linked back to the Tyson plant in Columbus Junction. The April surge left at least 2 workers dead. Dallas County, where the Tyson Perry plant is located, also experienced a surge in cases in April. We reached out to Tyson's during that time to see how many staff tested positive, but they didn't disclose that information due to privacy reasons. However, what we know from the data is more than 300 positive tests came back on April 25th. The last county, Blackhawk, another Tyson plant under fire, reporting its data around the same time as Louisa and Dallas. On April 7th, the county had 35 positive tests in total. By April 20th, their total would pass 550. Of course, Tyson facilities weren't the only food processing plants affected. Prestige Foods of Iowa in Wright County was also the center of an outbreak. Reporting in the studio, Holly Schlesselman, Local 5 News, we are Iowa.
Pork producers feel the pressure of a hurt packing plant industry during the pandemic. The unique ways one couple coped with the changes. There are parts of the food chain many of us were just unaware of before 2020. The pandemic, for better or worse, revealed different pieces of that puzzle, making up how a piece of bacon gets onto your plate. One integral part, the farmers who raise the animals. Local 5's Sarah Beckman shares how Iowa pork producers' lives were turned upside down because of coronavirus.
I'm Kevin Rasmussen.
I'm his wife, Lisa.
And we're pig farmers.
The Rasmussens raise pigs all year long. They let us get a glimpse inside one of their hog confinements on a Saturday afternoon in February. The pigs are small now, but they'll get big in a few months and will be ready for market by summertime.
I chose the career of livestock production because I have a passion for animals and I love taking care of animals, and that's just the profession I chose.
The profession Kevin chose took a huge hit in 2020.
34 workers at the JBS Swift & Company plant have tested positive for COVID-19. Outbreaks at 2 more meatpacking plants, both on the western part of the state.
A Tyson employee's mother is terrified for her daughter's safety after more and more people start testing positive for COVID-19.
Hundreds of meatpacking plant workers were getting sick. Some died. Several plants idled. Weeks before this, Kevin and other pork producers were on a call with industry leaders.
And at that time, we said, okay, what if employees in packing plants get coronavirus? What if this happens? What if? And so we were trying to be proactive and prepared. So what's our plan of action in case we have to back some pigs up? never dreaming that we would possibly have to euthanize pigs.
But the never dreaming part became a reality for many pork producers. Because the packing plants were getting backed up and the pigs kept growing, many animals were euthanized.
That's just devastating to a pork producer because we chose the profession to feed the world, and to have to euthanize pigs is just, it's just not in our vocabulary.
Luckily for the Rasmussens, their pigs weren't coming to market in April and May during all the shutdowns. But in June and July, when they were ready, Kevin and Lisa still felt the impacts of a hurt industry.
When they hit the market in late June, July, we were still running at about 90 to 95% capacity in packing plants. This created issues that we could, rather than selling 2 loads at a time, we were getting 1 load in. It was just a struggle to get pigs slaughtered.
The Rasmussens provided to Iowa in other ways during this time of turmoil. Kevin donated some pigs to the new Pass the Pork program, which helped pork producers avoid euthanizing their hogs by partnering with local meat lockers to cut up the meat and donate it to food banks.
My side hustle is a little art gig, and we canceled all our shows, in-person shows for the year, and I'm set up to, I needed to be busy, and so I started sewing masks, and we donated to people in the industry. 100 of them went to a packing plant. Bundle of them went to people, essential workers, the staff at Iowa Pork, people we grow for, and I didn't charge money, we just made them and delivered them.
The Rasmussens have a new group of pigs to grow in 2021, and their outlook for the year is hopeful.
2021 is going to be very similar in my mind to 2020, except that I'm just not going to have all the anxiety about packing plants closing down, and we've learned a lot about the coronavirus and how to deal with it and how to stay healthy, and that's a huge asset.
One thing Kevin and Lisa think 2020 is good for is Iowans and all Americans getting educated about our food.
The livestock industry touches lots of Iowans, from the truck drivers to the feed mill operators to the veterinarians to the packing plant employees,
so widespread. And we're not bad people. We're all doing the best we can do in our portion, our cog of this whole entire wheel. The packing plants were doing their best. Everybody was doing their best because we all have the same goal, and that's to raise that pork and get it to the people.
Every night we are profiling the unsung heroes of the pandemic, people who have made a difference in Iowans' lives. One of those individuals, the son of meatpacking workers who saw what was going on in the plants and wanted to speak out. Local 5's Sarah Beckman again.
When the coronavirus pandemic shut down nearly everything in Iowa last spring, it sent a lot of people home to create a new workplace. One of those virtual workers is Alejandro Ortiz.
I kind of had found myself in a place of privilege. I was working from home, knowing that my parents and many others were not going to have that opportunity.
Ortiz's mom and dad both work at a packing plant in western Iowa. It's hard, repetitive work. And when the virus began making its way through the population, it hit packing plants especially hard. Workers are crowded into production lines, and at the time weren't wearing any protective gear like masks or face shields. Ortiz and others heard horror stories from their families and knew they had to speak up.
High school friends or just people that I grew up with, started to really ask those questions and kind of sound the alarm on, what was going on.
Many packing plant workers don't speak English as a first language, and they didn't have a firm grasp of what was happening to them and their rights as workers. Ortiz and other activists soon became information gatherers and sharers.
There was so much that was happening because of the pandemic, that was happening to workers, that was happening to their families, where we, had to connect folks to resources.
1 year into the pandemic, and Ortiz is still meeting with workers, telling them about the vaccine and their right to access it, or not. He admits he's kind of working himself out of a job.
There's strong need for worker protections, whistleblower protections here in Iowa and really across the nation. And so if we had those things in place, if our decision makers actually cared, we wouldn't have these barriers. I wouldn't have to be advocating for anyone.
Some good news for those workers. Thousands of Tyson meatpacking plant employees got their vaccines just this month. This is video the company sent us from inside its Waterloo plant. Tyson is bringing the vaccines on site, making it easier for workers to get the shot. 7 facilities in Iowa are participating in the vaccine clinics this month. Well, there were certainly days in the pandemic where it was very hard to find happiness. Stuck at home, working from home, schooling from home. Sometimes when those worlds collided, it was too much. In one of our Happy Moments segments, though, a yoga instructor reminded us that imperfection could actually be the best part of our day.
Arms extend up and overhead.
The sign on the wall says it all. Relax. But in a pandemic, working from home, even the best laid plans can go awry.
No, Ivy, you scared me. Well, this is yoga at home, friends. This is yoga at home.
Yoga instructors are masters at helping us find inner peace, but even they had to dig deep over the last year.
Like, every day, one of my friends checked in on me one day. She goes, "How you doing?" I was like, "I did a meditation this morning." She goes, "Oh, good. How was it?" I go, "It wasn't long enough. I had to do a whole other one."
Brady says she works to find happiness every day. Laughter helps, so does movement, and one other thing.
Being grateful and having gratitude for the smallest of things, whatever that could be. You could write about it, you could journal about it.
And don't forget those deep yoga breaths and just go with the flow, whatever that may be.
This is yoga at home, friends. Breathe in.
That's right, just breathe and text us some of your happy moments. We'll share them on Friday night in a special piece. Be sure to include your name and a photo. We'll be right back. Tomorrow night on Local 5 News.
Dining, drinking, wait staff, cooks, housekeepers, those are the people that have borne the brunt.
At the beginning, I was almost kind of in denial, like, you know what, this is only going to be a week or two.
Coronavirus Cause and Effect, Iowa Impact. Episode 6 starts tomorrow at 6 on Local 5. And it certainly has been an interesting year. We have many more impactful stories about our year in the pandemic. You can watch our previous episodes of this special on coronavirus impact in Iowa on our YouTube channel or on our website. In the meantime, have a good night. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you back here at 10 o'clock.